Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 1980s cartoon series. We're going to talk about Season 1, Episode 3. This is my review of Season 1, Episode 3. This came out on October 1st, 1983, so it's 1983, you're going into the Halloween season. People are pretty hyped because this is out for the first time. And the name of this episode is Hall of Bones. All right, so here's my review of this episode. 5 out of 5 stars. All right, surprise, surprise. It's really fantastic. It's just delightful. You get the core player characters. And so what is happening in this episode? Well, Eric the Cavalier, Hank the Ranger, Diana the Acrobat, Sheila the Thief, Bobby the Barbarian, and Presto the Magician are actually and of course Uni the Unicorn are quested by Dungeon Master to go to the ancient Hall of Bones. So what's that all about? What's up with the ancient Hall of Bones? Why do they have to go? Well, the reason they have to go is to charge their magical weapons. There's so much here. Let's talk about this. What does this mean? All right. So Gary Gygax went to Hollywood in 1981 to write this thing and to work as a producer, mostly to work as a producer and get this onto the air. And there's just so much here, right? So the other thing is, Gary was there in Hollywood, so if he really wanted to put his foot down, he could have, but he allowed this to be the representation of the game, and there's so much to think about here. So why did Gary Gygax, just think about what's happening, okay? You're in episode 3. They've only been in the world for 3 episodes, and they're already needing to recharge their magical items, right? So here's the biggest thing. What are the lessons that we get from the 1980s cartoon that come from Gary Gygax? Lesson number 1, skip levels 1, 2, and 3 and go straight to level 4. So I've been doing this for a long time in my games. I don't bother with level 1, 2, and 3, right? I start at level 4. And the reason why is I think this is really, really important for us to understand. Your game is on a clock, right? And the reality is, I know that some people, here's the issue. I could be, you know what? I'm just going to give my opinion. Y'all can come at me in the comments if you think I'm really wrong about this. Your game is on a clock. You only have so much time, okay? Because one of your players is going to get abducted by aliens or win the lottery or get put on a different shift. One of your other, players is going to get attracted by some OSR game or, these games, they're tenuous, right? You got to start them cool and keep them cool and end cool, right? And I just know so many people who are like, oh, you're going to be a dirt farmer for 6 months and then you'll be okay. And finally, 12 to 18 months from now, you'll be a hero. And I'm like, no, man, you ain't got time to drag people through all this. Start it cool. And that's exactly what Gary Gygax did with the Saturday morning cartoon. He started that sucker cool, man. He's like, let's do this, right? And he just cracked it off and started them with magical weapons from the gate. And in episode 1, Presto's summoning Tiamat, right? You don't wait. You just get the good stuff cracking immediately and you keep the good stuff coming, right? Ain't nobody got time for this dirt farmer nonsense that is all the rage in a lot of games, right? I can't tell you how many people I know have been drugged through those. You gotta earn being cool, man. No, man, let them be cool from the start, right? And that's something that you're definitely seeing in here, is they're started at level 4 or more. Because they all have magical weapons, right? That's crazy. And then, of course, you see Dungeon Master questing them. One thing I thought was really interesting that was very Gary Gygax was Dungeon Master's I say you do, right? And he sent these your magical weapons are kind of powering down there. You best get yourselves to the ancient Hall of Bones, right? And he just points his finger and is go, right? And that is very old school. It really did match Gary Gygax's style, where players are players did what the Dungeon Master said. And this was very 80s and very 90s, and boy, will I tell you right now, the power dynamic has 100% flipped, right? And the reality is, in the 70s and 80s, when you were running this stuff, Dungeons & Dragons had virtually no competitors, right? The best fantasy book in the world was Lord of the Rings. Not sure that's changed. There's a lot of good fantasy books. I'm not complaining. But in addition, video games didn't even exist, right? Or they were barely starting, right? And movies were kind of scrub, or just weren't great. Star Wars came out in 77, 74 to 76, there wasn't even Star Wars, Star Trek was off the air, there just wasn't any competitors, right? And so Dungeon Masters had a lot of power. That is not the case today. There is just so many people, so many things that are siren. They are sirens calling your players to very rocky shores where they will be destroyed, and they're not going to get a good experience. Much worse than Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeon Masters, it's just not like it was. So that is very, very different. The other thing I want to talk about here is Presto, right? I'm not sure I want to lay this out. I have a theory that Presto is not human. I know this sounds crazy, but one, he's the only character who doesn't have a name, right? Listen to it. Eric the Cavalier, Hank the Ranger, Diana the Acrobat, Sheila the Thief, Bobby the Barbarian, and Presto the Magician. They don't use his real name, right? I think it might be mentioned once in the show, and I've seen it quoted somewhere as Albert, but it is never used, right? So why does Presto not have a name like all the other characters? It is very, very odd, okay? And my theory is that I think he may have been a doppelganger that started on Earth and then went to Faerun when they went across, right? And so I don't think Presto's human, right? I do think he did come, because I'm almost positive we see him we actually see him get onto the roller coaster, and the roller coaster goes over, right? But when he gets there, he's never called by his regular name like everyone else, right? Also, look at his magic. His magic is ridiculous. It's so powerful. Now, a lot of times it doesn't work, but it always ends up producing something, right? And in a few episodes from now, he'll get apprenticed by some other wizard. He is just ridiculously powerful, even though he can't control that power, right? So it is my opinion that while Eric the Cavalier, Hank the Ranger, Diana the Acrobat, Sheila the Thief, and Bobby the Barbarian are human, I don't think Presto's a human. I think he's a doppelganger who went, or a shapeshifter who went to Earth, played in their D&D game, and may have led them back to Faerun, right? That makes sense to me, but there's a lot of clues, in my opinion, that Presto is simply not human. And also, if you're like, I don't get it, Scott, remember True Name. I will tell you right now, I am convinced the spell True Name is a crystal of wisdom that exists within First Edition, and it is incredibly, incredibly important, okay? You have to understand the importance of True Name. And the fact that Presto's true name is never or only once spoken in the show is a very big deal. Gary Gygax cared a lot about names. It's not an accident that Presto's real name wasn't used. All that's my opinion. What did you think of Season 1, Episode 3 of the Dungeons & Dragons 1980s cartoon series? I would love to hear your thoughts. And Hall of Bones. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.